Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And hello again, everybody. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines. I'm Phil Wurz, President and CEO of the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And we're joined today by Ron Maness, the director of the Moore County Airport, located in Carthage and kind of Southern Pines
and kind of Pinehurst, all of that.
So, but yeah, great to have you, Ron, and welcome to Paradise in the Pines.
Thank you so much, Phil. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I just so much appreciate what the Convention and Visitors Bureau is doing for our county, our communities, and for the airport as well.
Well, thank you. We certainly appreciate that. In fact, we produced a video, which I think you have on your website.
It's excellent. It's outstanding.
Well, we appreciate that, and we appreciate all the support as well. So recently you were renamed for the fourth time. It's almost like, was it a Groundhog Day?
Groundhog Day.
And so the fourth time as the director of the airport, and you graciously accepted that opportunity after Scotty Malta departed. So what's it like to come back for the fourth time now?
Well, I'm trying to get it right. I think this time I may have it squared away. No, it's, Phil, I took my first airplane ride when I was a young boy here at this airport. Huh. And I grew up on a farm in the northern part of the county, so this was kind of a big event for me. And my granddad took me out to the airport, had a friend that had an airplane out there, and that was my first flight. And,
okay.
And the hook went deep. And,
yeah.
And so the airport has for me personally a lot of me in it, basically. I've kind of gone 360 here.
Right.
I've started out there my aviation career, and now I'm back. I had retired from U.S. Airways in 2002, 2003 timeframe, and the airport was looking for a director at that time. That's 2004. Came aboard, stayed for 3 years, and then was called back to U.S. Airways to test fly some new airplanes down South America, the Embraer jets that they were getting.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a couple of years and had some idle time, and there was transitioning between managers, and the phone rang, and I came back and repeated that process one more time in 2010 and 12. And so Scotty came along, was with us from California, did a great job, but had some personal things that he needed to attend to with his family. He has family in Virginia. And the authority called me back, and I pondered this with my wife, and we kicked it around, and I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just come back out to the airport until we find a new director. Well, when I got back to the airport and saw the environment and the projects that are going on, I just got thoroughly excited.
Got you excited again,
It got me excited, and I have a fabulous staff there that they could run the airport basically without me, but I can tell you we've got so many good things going on there right now that I decided to say, hey, I ran the airport in 2005 for that to open. I helped in 2014 for that open. 24 is coming up. I'll stay on and help the next person get through that event. And so that was my commitment to the airport.
Well, you talked about your staff, and I mean that's the mark of a good manager. You hire really good people and just get out of their way.
Yeah, one of the board members years ago told me his philosophy was delegate and disappear.
Yeah, I'd be on the golf course, right. Which I am often, not as often as people think.
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned inspiration. What got you into aviation? I grew up in Norfolk, Virginia, as a Navy brat.
Oh yeah.
And my father was in the Seabees and worked on C-130s and served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. He would always take me over what was then the Norfolk Regional Airport, much bigger airport now, because I loved the weather. And he'd always they give me these satellite photographs that they would take, and I was fascinated by hurricanes and things like that, and ultimately wanted to become a meteorologist and realized I'm not very good at math. So I became a journalist. So and the story goes on and on. But your inspiration, you said you grew up in Moore County. Talk about growing up in Moore County back in the day and how you did get involved deeply with aviation and fall in love with it.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm in the northern part of the county, and over the years, watching all the transitions and changes here in Moore County, it's just been really incredible. It was very much a rural area there with small farms. Southern part of the county kind of had some golf going on, and so there was kind of a dichotomy there between northern Moore County and southern Moore County. And over the years, we have seen such a wonderful transition for both communities, really. We see the Robbins area growing and things happening up that way. But basically, I went to school at Chapel Hill and got involved with ROTC. And from there, I qualified to get into pilot training. This was during the Vietnam era. And graduated second in my class and was able to take an F-106 fighter aircraft, which would fly a little faster than twice the speed of sound. Great air-to-air combat type airplane.
Yeah.
Flew against TOPGUN quite a bit. Was in the first aggressor squadron, which is the Air Force equivalent to TOPGUN. And that happened to be right across the street from the Air Force Thunderbird hangar.
And that's located
in Las Vegas, at Nellis Air Force Base, yes. And so I was kind of intrigued with regard to maybe thinking about getting on the team. And, you know, it's all of us fear this a sense of rejection. And I thought, gosh, I'll never qualify for that, you know.
Yeah.
But I had a friend that was applying and said, Ron, if you don't try, you'll never know. And so I did, and I made the team. This was in 1977 in the fall. And I took over the number 2 left wing position. And
incredible.
Flew that position for 2 years. Just an incredible experience. It just it's hard to describe the intensity, the concentration. I heard one pilot that flew with the Blue Angels say that this level of concentration no one can comprehend until you're in it.
Yeah.
And when you're 3 feet apart and you're doing 400 or 500 miles an hour and you're 50 feet above the ground and doing all those kinds of things, the interdependence on teammates is incredible.
I can imagine.
You know, I mean, every day. And
I mean, how do you practice that? If you make a mistake, you're done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you get that close for the first time and not freak out?
Well, that's a great point, because I had flown a lot of formation before I got on the team as a fighter pilot. But that wasn't the formation that the Thunderbirds fly.
Yeah.
And so how it begins is the leader and, say, myself, the left wingman, would go up pretty high, and I'd be pretty wide, you know, very safe distances, and we'd start with a loop and a roll, and a loop and a roll, and a loop and a roll. And you just complete that process over and over till you kept refining 2 things. Number one, you had to trust the leader that he would never make a mistake.
Enormously, yeah.
Yeah. And he had to trust you that no matter what he had to do, you were going to be in your position no matter what.
Yeah.
And so that trust builds, and slowly but surely you put the diamond together, then you bring on the solo pilots, and they're normally training separately from the diamond. And the training season starts, Phil, usually at the end of November after air show season, and the first air show is usually mid-March. So you've got just a limited amount of time to get proficient. And even after you're on the team, let's say we do a show on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and we're back in Nellis on Monday. Tuesday we're flying, and Wednesday we're flying, and Thursday we're flying. It's like being a professional athlete. You've got to keep your skills honed at all times.
You talk about trust, and I'm sure that alleviates the mind so you can build the confidence. You talked about qualifying. And this isn't something where you go fill out an application. I go, okay, Ron's a good. I think he's good. How did you qualify? Did you have to fly some sort of tactical mission or show proficiency in being able to do turns or whatever?
Yeah.
The terminology I'm not familiar with, obviously, but how do you qualify?
It's a pretty thorough process. You know, they'll publish positions that are open, and you have to have certain qualifications to even apply. And basically, you've got to have a pretty strong fighter aircraft background. And they'll get 100, 200 applications, and the team sits down and reviews all the applications to see backgrounds, qualifications, that thing, and they'll narrow it down to about 20 candidates. And those candidates will meet the team on different locations when they're flying. And you get an orientation flight in the back seat of one of the airplanes during a show or an arrival maneuver. And I can tell you, the first time I rode in the back seat of number 3 on the right wing, I thought, I can never do this. This is too crazy. This is scary close. And I'm thinking, maybe I can pull my application and not be embarrassed. But long and short of it is I made the team, and I just would share with you, last week, my old teammates, every year we get together, and we've renamed ourselves not Thunderbirds, but Thunder Geezers. And so we get together every year and reminisce and tell stories and catch up on what's going on in each other's lives. But you can imagine the psychological bond that
of course
develops over that experience.
I would tell you, on a much smaller scale, as a journalist in TV news and the eastern part of North Carolina, I had a chance to fly with the Blue Angels at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, and you get one opportunity as a journalist. That's it. And so I had an opportunity to do that. And long story short, I mean, we did several different maneuvers, whatever. Actually, they give you the I guess the steering wheel, for lack of the throttle.
Yeah.
And I tried to do a 4-point turn, and he was just laughing at me. But I mean, then he started doing some turns, and they'll tell you, hey, you know, trying to keep your blood in your head, and you're just clenching it, and just keep it. And I remember we did. I think at the very end, it was a thing. It's called a tower turn.
Yeah.
It was like 6.2 Gs or something like that. So you know, the tunnel vision got more like this, and I squeezed it out, but I was exhausted. I mean, my legs were like noodles. It was. I don't know how you do it. Obviously, the repetition and the training has got to be incredibly intense, as you said. But I mean, it gave me an enormous appreciation for what the Blue Angels do, what the Thunderbirds do. Right. It's incredible.
It's mentally and physically very intense, and it's a conditioning thing, Phil. We were pulling normally about 4 to 5 Gs in the loops. For pitch up to landing, we were doing 7 Gs. We didn't wear G suits at that time, which is a device around your lower body to, like you say, to keep the blood supply up, because the optic nerve is the most sensitive organ to the blood flow, and so. But I remember the scene in this latest Top Gun movie where it showed the gentleman graying out and the tunnel vision, and then he went into what they call G-lock, which he's completely unconscious. And what we're finding in newer aircraft, let's say for instance the F-16 or F-18, especially F-16, they can sustain 9 Gs, which is a lot of
force.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable. So come back to little old Moore County Airport here. So from the time that you arrived, I think you said 2004.
Yes.
Fast forward to 2022. I mean, how much growth has happened at this little old
country airport
here? Yeah.
Phil, it's been...
I'm being facetious.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course,
it's certainly, we'll get into that.
Yeah. Tremendous changes. When I first came, we had a paved runway and a grass strip that crossed the runway, basically went diagonally to it. We had no really big hangars except for one that we owned. The budget there at that time was around $1 million total, something like that. Base customers were limited. We maybe had 30, 40 airplanes based on the airport. Commercial traffic, we had just departed after 9/11. We lost our service over to Charlotte. So that had gone away, and the corporate aviation was there, but we really didn't have the draw that we have now. And now we have 4 major hangars there, large, 12,000 square feet, a new one going up here next month. We now have 104 airplanes based there. Our budget's up to the area of $6 million a year, and we're totally self-sufficient. We're not taking taxpayer dollars at all. We generate our revenues basically on fuel sales and hangar rent and some other various methods of revenue that we get. But it's a wonderful transition, and there's lots going on right now. For instance, we have a fund that was fully funded by the Department of Transportation that's modifying our infrastructure so that we can expand our hangar space. The airport borrowed $4.2 million from the bank to finance their own building the hangars. We got 12 new T hangars, 5 new executive hangars. We're in the process of erecting as we speak. That's about between those two is about $6 to $7 million worth of growth. Next, we're going to redo all the airport lighting. It's been funded. We're
talking exterior lighting, the tarmac.
Yes, all the runway lights and all that to LED lights, which will be a tremendous improvement.
And a cost saver.
Oh, a big. That's a huge part of our budget is our electric bill every month because those lights are very expensive to have on. We just recently received a $2.5 million grant. We're not quite sure how we're going to utilize those funds at this point in time, but it's kind of an unusual grant. It came from the State Capital Infrastructure Fund, which allows us to do things with that money that normally the FAA or the Department of Aviation would have to decide was proper. This one gives us some latitude to do some nice things out there. And lastly, we're going to resurface the runway. The Department of Aviation is doing that for us at no cost to the airport. It's about $1 million project.
Wow.
And we're going to resurface and paint it and put all new markings down, and then we're going to have it ready for the U.S. Open in 24.
There'll be some structural changes to the building, if I understand, as well, prior to the U.S. Open. And I think there were some reasons for that, because when you arrive, people see the front of the airport where they see the putting green and the mats at Pinehurst, Southern Pines Aberdeen area. So we appreciated doing that. But also, too, just orient people to the airport from the back. When they arrive, you want to have more of a sense of arrival for people, especially with the kind of jets we're seeing flying in there right now.
Exactly. Just 2 weeks ago, I think we had Home Depot in with about 6 Gulfstream jets parked out on the ramp. And as you mentioned, prior to the President's Cup, we had a significant amount of traffic. I'll tell you that we are we've hired an architectural firm from Charlotte that specializes in airport planning. Mm-hmm. And so they're giving us some options on how we could modify the terminal, how we can dress it up, because it looks great from what we call the land side when you're driving up as a customer. Right. But people getting off the airplanes, they're out on a pavement basically out there staring at a brick building. And so we're hoping to modify that to welcome to Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen in big letters, and give them a really positive visual impression when they get off the airplane. And I might add, Phil, to that, I have a terrific staff, as I mentioned, and my line people are the first people that anyone has a visual contact with when they land here. And it's vitally important that my people present the classiest, best image they possibly can, reflecting the Pinehurst area atmosphere. And so they're laying down the red carpet. They're asking how they can serve them. Welcome to Pinehurst, Southern Pines area. And so that's a big part of what we do.
I would tell you, I live in Whispering Pines at the end of the tarmac there, and I see those jets taking off and landing. And you mentioned the President's Cup, and my brother worked. He just recently retired. Worked in corporate aviation for more than 40 years. And the weekend before the President's Cup, I took some pictures of the planes and sent them to my brother, and he said, "Oh yeah, there are 3 Falcon X7s out there. They start at $38 million."
Right.
So when you talk about laying out the red carpet, we're not talking about somebody that's flying in a little Piper.
Yeah.
And we're talking about people that are major C-level Fortune 100 executives that could stay anywhere in the world.
Exactly.
But they choose here. So that first impression, as you said, is ultimately important. That translates to economic impact. So talking about, 2004, not quite what it is today, and the economic impact, I don't think people understand what the impact is on Moore County for what happens at that airport. Can you elaborate?
I can. The University of North Carolina State University started the surveys a few years back. The Institute of Transportation and Education, ITRI, would survey all the general aviation airports in North Carolina, and looking at how many employees, what kind of business was there, what kind of peripheral businesses you supported. For instance, our support of the Pinehurst Resort or the other resorts in the area. They're looking at other businesses that are based there and to see how many jobs they're creating. And from that data, they gather 3 things. They gather direct economic impact that the airport's making, that you can measure in dollars and cents with regard to how many salaries and those kinds of things. And then they look at an induced number. In other words, those precipitate outwards so that, people that are not directly associated with the airport are being served by it, let's say the resort, and those employees over at the resort are receiving benefits of the airport because we're bringing those big jets in and the guests associated with that. And then there's the indirect, which is kind of outside those 2 norms. But the recent study that was just completed last year showed that we at the airport, Moore County Airport, have at least a $92 million annual impact on our local economy. And about 300 jobs associated with that.
And we appreciate that because we just set an all-time record in the county for visitor spending at $673 million in 2021. That was up 70% from 2020, 4th fastest rate of growth in the state of North Carolina. And obviously seeing those planes fly in there has a big part in that. Furthermore, on the economic impact side, when the USJ announced to build their second headquarters here, I mean, how much more impact is that going to have as we look down the road?
It's hard to measure, but it's going to be big. I can tell you that. when we heard that news and the fact that Pinehurst is going to host this Open on a regular basis, basically, I can tell you this: in 2005 and 2014, and we're getting ready for this event as we speak ahead of time. We had 2,000 flights in 5 days.
Oh my goodness!
You had to have an arrival slot time or a departure slot time. We have a temporary air traffic control center there, a mobile unit that's manned by professionals. And so you can see what impact that alone is going to have.
Right.
Now, we repeat this process every 5 years. It's hard to measure exactly how the USGA is going to utilize the airport. We hope they'll bring in more of their executives and travel and those kinds of things. And obviously, there should be a lot of people coming and going just for the USGA function itself. So we're excited about having that presence. And you're a member of this board. Recently, the airport put together a business advisory committee, and you're on that committee. And we have the Pinehurst Resort, the USGA, the
Economic development, First Health Surgical, just a lot of key players in the business arena here in Moore County to help us with our vision and help us look to the future and to see the improvements and how we can better serve the community. And it's a tremendous asset. I understand there may be an opportunity for a restaurant because people love the pick and pig and when it's Carthage there, and people love to go. And I see people with their families and kids like to watch the planes fly in. I did that when I was a kid because I lived very close to the Norfolk Naval Air Station. My dad would take me out there to see all the planes flying in or the regional airport. And so can you talk about that? Is there an opportunity for like a really nice restaurant that people can enjoy while they watch the planes?
That's definitely in the plan. We're again, this group from Charlotte that we're working with is helping us understand the size, where to place it, the viability, all those kinds of things, but it's definitely in consideration right now. And back to your point about seeing airplanes on a Sunday afternoon, several years ago, a Boy Scout, his Eagle Scout project was to develop a viewing area there at the airport. So we have picnic tables and chairs and things out there. And you'd be surprised at how many people you see there with their young children watching airplanes take off and land. Which leads me to an upcoming.
They can dream and maybe want to be a Thunderbird someday.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. And we just recently flew 111 young people through the Experimental Aircraft Association, what we call it the Young Eagles program, where children can come out and get a free airplane ride. And you just don't know what seed you're planting when that happens. And the excitement in those children's eyes. And my pilots furnish the airplanes, and I furnish the fuel. And it's a great event. We hold that twice a year. Yeah.
And talk about planting seeds. You have a program also with Sandhills Community College. Can you talk about that?
We do. We developed that about 4 or 5 years ago, where we did some seed money to the community college to help them establish an aviation training program. And basically, they have two options. You can train as your career would lead you into a direct aviation pilot role, if you will, and then they have an airport management program, which we support. As a matter of fact, Scotty did some instruction over there when he was here, and we're closely aligned with the community college to promote every aspect of aviation, and obviously they're kind of the front line on that.
Right. This will post as we record this. This will post right before Halloween. You do a pretty cool event that I think you guys were surprised about when you guys announced you were going to have Kids Love Candy and Halloween and an airport. I mean, boom, you got great success.
Well, it's crazy. We did this while I was back in my third tour, and one year we had maybe about 500 kids that came out, but social media being what it is, we posted that, and we were pleasantly surprised that we had over 3,000 children show up with their parents, parking along Airport Drive down to Highway. I mean, we ran out of parking spaces basically and lined up, and we had several of my base customers had their airplanes out, and they were decorated in costumes, and we had candy and exposure for all those children. It was a great event. Great event.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, now leading into this, since the Festival de Aviation has moved to the end of October, we're combining. The airport has spent enough money to feed children a whole bunch of candy out during this event, the Festival de Aviation, which starts on October the 28th, which is a Friday, and we'll have a concert that evening. if I can lead on into
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, that was going to be my next question
Yeah,
for sure.
it's a great event. Peter Stillwell has worked with me. We did the first two together, and we'll have a crowd of 10 to 15,000 people out there. And Peter has arranged this year. We're going to have 2 Ospreys there. We're going to have a Chinook, Apache, a attack helicopter, another version. We've got Army presence there, Marine Corps presence. We'll have a C-130 flyby. We're hoping to have a C-17 flyby. We'll have lots of antique airplanes, and we have a couple of the automobile clubs in the area have a number of unique cars there. We'll have a bouncy area for the kids and food trucks, and the Golden Knights will be there.
Yeah.
They're going to be jumping on Saturday. We'll have one skydive Friday evening just prior to the concert. And
that concert, by the way, is REO Speedwagon. I guess cover band and Survivor. So that's Friday night.
Yeah, right, exactly. The tribute band, think that's what they call that. We had the tribute band that were the Eagles tribute band for a couple of seasons. Mm-hmm. We understand this group is really terrific. That'll be a lot of fun.
And that's Friday night, October 28th, and then all day Saturday the 29th. FestivalD'Avion.com is the website you want to go to. Tickets still available. And if you like to run, the Saturday before is the Runway 5K on October the 22nd. And so how do they maneuver that on the runway? Do they run down the runway and back, or how does that work?
Actually, we use the taxiway.
Okay.
Which is much safer, and so we direct the pathway down the taxiway. The runway length is 6,502 feet long, which is like 1 nautical mile. A little more than a statute mile. But they'll be on the taxiway in both directions, and so we'll be there to orchestrate that and to monitor their progress and keep everybody safe. And it's a pretty flat run, which is kind of neat, and a great place to do it.
And I was there last year, and I was blown away how many people were there on Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, go to the concert Friday night. It's an awesome time. I said, but that entire event, I mean, for as much as it was impeded by the pandemic and delayed, I think this is the 3rd time over the course of the years that I've been here that this has happened. It's certainly one of the great community events in Moore County. And if you're talking about inspiring a younger generation to the industry and aviation, I couldn't think of a better thing to do on a Saturday afternoon and a fall day in the Carolinas than to go to that event.
Yeah, one of the goals we have is letting the public know the value of the airport. Just like we talked about the economic impact, that's not real visible to people. Mm-hmm. But when they come out and have some fun and see the airport and see airplanes, and young children can climb in the cockpit and experience some really neat aviation-related experiences, we just feel is really important. And we're looking at different ways that we can do other functions as well. We're contemplating a Christmas theme later on in December. We've got some things planned for the spring in terms of maybe a food truck carnival and
that's great.
Those kinds of things. So it's really important that we help the people in our communities understand what the airport's all about and how it serves them.
Could people come out there if they just want to come out and say hi and maybe get a tour? Do you have to schedule that? Or?
Our doors are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And anytime anyone wants to come and walk on the ramp, sit in the rocking chairs we have, watch airplanes take off and leave, ask questions.
Use the putting green?
Use the putting green, all of that. Anytime, we love having a guest show up.
Well, Ron Maness, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm fascinated by the Thunderbirds. Mm-hmm. I can't believe I'm sitting here with a former pilot with the Thunderbirds, and it's just an absolute honor. We appreciate your dedication, your repetitive dedication to the Moore County Airport and to your service of America and to the Thunderbirds. You're a great gentleman and a great honor to be working with you.
Thank
and
you,
a
Phil.
Contributor to Moore County and the success we have here.
I thank you so much for those kind compliments. I can tell you that I look back over that experience and think, if a little boy from North Moore County can do that, just plant the seed in the youth and give them the motivation to say, if I could do it, you can do it as well. Absolutely.
Well, thanks again. And if you want to learn more about the destination, the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen area, go to homeofgolf.com. If you want to check out our YouTube and this video and our vodcast, you go to Home of American Golf on our YouTube channel. And, of course, if you want to download this podcast, you can do it any of your podcatchers. I like Spotify personally, but anywhere, you just search Paradise in the Pines, and you'll find this podcast. We ask you to find it, download it, and share it. Ryan Maness, thanks again for your time, and we've loved having you here at Paradise in the Pines.
Thank you so much, Phil. Thanks for having me.
I'm Phil Worst for Ryan Maness. We'll see you next time. It was great. I
really do. We still have the farm where I grew up.